The idea is to think of ways by which India could contribute to internet governance and strengthen the internet governance process. So we have our own concerns. We have quite a lot of concerns about India's role in internet governance, about the way internet governance happens at the moment. But those concerns are kept aside for a moment. It will be handled in a different track. But for the next 90 minutes, we will only focus on what from India we can offer to internet governance. One of the ideas that came up during the Asia Internet Governance Forum is that we could contribute by strengthening the internet governance process by contributing our wisdom from our history, from our culture. For example, we have had a very great tradition, and we have our sastras, and we have several noble models of governance. We can go back to our history and examine them, as also look at some of our corporate business models and take out whatever is relevant and think of internet governance in a different way. The whole idea is that right now the institutions in internet governance, for example, the Internet Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers, and Internet Society and other organizations that coordinate some of the functions in internet governance, they have a governance design which is essentially a corporate-like governance structure with a board of governors with processes, review processes known as accountability and transparency and so on. One of the thoughts is that internet governance is a more elaborate process. Internet affects the whole world, and so we need to look at a higher form of governance. And so this is an undefined exercise at the moment. It's not very clearly defined. It will get defined as we go, and the exercise at this point of time is to get started discussing on ways by which the internet governance process is strengthened. So we'll begin, and probably I would request Mr. Bharat Epur. I've met him in a coffee shop recently, and I know that he has considerable interest in history, and a topic like this could interest him. And we'll go around and gather our thoughts and see how the discussion goes. Thank you.
Once again, good afternoon, or rather I should say good evening to all of you. It's that part of the day. I would just like to just spend a few minutes talking about the Indian approach to such things. By that I mean going back on what we have been told as growing up in school and college. The foremost concept which comes to my mind is the ancient concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are taught that from a very young age that the whole world is our family and we are all members of that family. Somewhere down the road, we seem to have drifted away from that concept, at least some of us. And we seem to have more drawn towards parochial attitudes, parochial societies and parochial thoughts. If we could go back to that original concept of being one part of a macroscopic whole, we have that inherent genetic advantage in us. I don't mean in a medical point of view, I mean more in a psychological and a psychical point of view. It's something which we can awaken in every Indian citizen to look at it from a very large perspective, or a very long-term perspective, not narrowed down to a particular era or a particular geographic location. So I think we must, carry on from where Shiva started off, we need to look at it from that really broader perspective, and then if we can open up our minds and thoughts and work from that angle, and whatever suggestions we can have and discussions we can have in this forum, I think that would be probably a good place to start, because we are talking about it from a very idealistic point of view of what we can discuss and possibly nudge others to go through. So this is something which I thought we could start off with, look at it from an absolute global perspective. Just to get your thoughts going, and this business of Internet Society and ICANN are the two things which come to my mind. As I mentioned earlier this afternoon, Internet got its start from America and it is spread all over the world. Now we need to figure out if it is doing justice from the point of view of even the smallest country. Are they being kind of bulldozed by the few strong people in the various fora? David spoke about this IGF, and according to what he told me, they've been discussing most of the points that I raised. I'm very glad to hear that. My point is, do we need to really kind of nudge ourselves into pushing them down the path towards plurality, towards a path of some kind of transparency, and more important, accountability? I don't see the last bit happening so far. There seems to be a lack of accountability to what's happening. It's something being top-driven. It's not being, though we say it's a flat structure, though we say everybody's an owner of internet, etc., etc. Those are very nice platitudes one hears. But the fact remains that things are being top-driven even now as we speak. So we need to see how we can contribute towards inverting that to making a truly democratic process. Thank you.
Yes, please share your thoughts. The mic can go around. So. No, there's no particular order by which we go around. And so, Harish, Sarto.
So good evening. I'm Sarto. I'm the Vice President here in the Chennai chapter. So I'm a layman as far as technology and internet is concerned. I would associate myself as a late entrant into the so-called internet user community, because though I did engineering, MBA and all, but we were busy with our own way of corporate life till 1999, when I was forced to do a program in the UK. So that time, I was just forced to study about internet technology. Then I did a course called e-commerce, which is affecting even people like us, or even in different communities in the user segment. So one is the access, which we have already touched. Even today, many people do not have the right access. Do we have the access from all locations? And number two is the connectivity. Morning I was in Pondicherry. In a hotel, I found the connectivity is given only at the lobby, where Wi-Fi is there. When I went to the room, there is no connectivity. Okay. So all of us tend to go towards the lobby, and Wi-Fi has to be enabled, which is again some sort of denial, or So we are, I think...
Sarto, with all these issues, what do you think could change the way the internet is governed, which would solve problems in a manner that is fair for everyone? So what do you think of...
some suggestions which come to my mind.
On the governance side, because we can't go into details of the issues, because those issues are quite real, but at the moment those issues are set aside, and we are lifting ourselves up to a higher level to think of a higher model of governance. And it's a long process, and it's a long-term process, not something that will change anything immediately, but we are trying to think if there is something that we could offer from our country, from our culture, and other countries could offer from their culture, which will help to shape the internet governance into a more evolved structure.
So one is the speed in which internet is given to the user community. For example, I read Korea has got one of the the fastest internet connectivity which is accessible to all the public. Now we in India, we do not have that speed, but we still can boast of reasonably good access. But then there has to be a convergence of availability here, not just the access but connectivity. So therefore the hardware hardware as a separate component comes in, which has to be integrated with the system. So this is again another dimension to it, which may take a longer time, as Shiva said, in the ecosystem. But I do not know whether we should separate it or isolate it from the internet as a software medium. It is also there, given that so much use is there, and everybody today is be it in any language, they are able to access it. Then the third component which I wanted, as already discussed, is the pricing, as Rajnesh suggested. The pricing in different parts of the globe, because more and more globalization will definitely have a telling impact on this particular issue. Even if a young person has to travel to different countries, I think pricing has to be addressed, which is abnormally high. Because I happened to go to a country which is just a neighboring country. Last year I stayed there for a week, came back, I ended up paying some 10 times of my mobile bill, even just sending texts. And so which is, therefore in the international parlance, I think this has to be touched as India's major component, thank you.
My name is Harish and I've come here from Bangalore. And while listening to Rajnesh and other people on the forum, thought that came in my mind was, while the bigger topic is governance, we cannot take away from the importance of usage. And I was thinking about the connectedness between governance and usage, whether governance drives usage or does usage drive governance. And I believe that sometimes I think that governance is perhaps just too big an animal to handle or to even dictate terms. But usage, as we saw perhaps in the Arab Spring, even in India's own anti-corruption movements and in the recent election and so on, how the internet was deployed to move people, to mobilize opinion, to mobilize thoughts and move things ahead. And even during the coffee break, I was sharing my views with a few people about perhaps you could call it as a darker side of this, which is which we would have read recently about these youths who were attracted to the ISIS. They were also attracted through messages in the internet only, right? And a thread that I've been part of for the past few months is something called the social media for social good, where there are people who are very active on the social media who who want to point out and who want to try to make a difference in their chosen area of interest. And perhaps that kind of usage could prompt certain activities or give a certain focus to governance as well. And would like to hear some thoughts on this front from this.
This is Samiran Gupta, and I think what I'm about to say is not necessarily the views of ICANN, but it's myself as a stakeholder in this multi-stakeholder environment that we are sitting in. So if you were to look at participation, and Harish brought out a very important issue around usage versus, usage versus governance. And one of the key issues that is emerging, and this is a pet peeve that, for example, certain governments have, and I'll come to it because governments are also part of the multi-stakeholder model, is that, for example, there are many more nations with lesser users who have actually followed the system and percolated into the structures of internet governance faster. So let me give you an example. There could be a committee which is formed to, let us say, decide on technical standards. And I'm not talking about, let's say, IETF or ICANN. I'm saying it could be anywhere. Now, there could be representatives from Malta and Zambia, okay, versus, let's say, China, India, and let's say Russia, okay? Now, that too is a problem, okay? So going back to what Mr. Epur was saying, you know, how do we evolve a new model where we can contribute something? And I think, in my view, the first step would be to get more users involved in more governance. In other words, we are still treating this medium as a quote-unquote pass-through. It's a utility. We are sitting in this room, the lights are working, so we are not thinking about electricity. The moment the lights go out, we'll be thinking if the generator, how soon will the generator come on? And then you'll start calculating what is the cost of running the generator. So similarly, I think the point of evolution of the internet and India's increasing use, and I'm talking about both rural and urban India, there needs to be a little more sensitization. And you and I were speaking, I mean, Harish and I were speaking about how to spread the message. Should it be at the college level, or should it be at the high school level, or should it be at the, which level should it be, where more and more people get more involved in some way or the other, whether it's through ISOC, whether it's through other similar structures. Because until there's enough participation by users, you will have skewed results coming out of this governance process, and possibly no process will be, you know, close to perfection. So that's the submission I'd like to make.
Well, I was thinking a little bit more abstractly, and I thought that the question of who owns internet is always there, and it's a multi-stakeholder, you know, multiple owners here, and so when you talk of governance, you can look at it like an operations research kind of problem also, in the sense that the first question you ask is, how do you define, why is it being done? I thought one way to describe it is that, you know, all these stakeholders come together to provide, these are my words, okay, to provide access, availability and efficiency to a platform, which we all know could be a, what do you call, no storehouse of knowledge, a platform for transacting businesses between person to person, company to company, etc. So if you take that as a starting point, and then obviously why I said operations research is not too literally, but there are always constraints in achieving those goals, and those constraints are, you know, definitely privacy is one thing which we all talked about, you know, personal data and things like that, privacy. Security, I think it's very important in terms of, for a national stakeholder, government being a stakeholder, security of the country is very important. Confidentiality could be an important thing for others. Cost of availability of these resources could be a constraint. So I think ultimately the system, which I mean the stakeholders and everybody, have to reach the objective working within these constraints. And so any governance process, I assume, will have the objective to monitor how well the goals are being performed. So just as these are initial thoughts, I guess first thing is to identify the stakeholders and probably give them a voice in that governance. That could be a good starting point. Share expectations and then go from there. So these are my thoughts.
May I? All right. Governance is very tricky, right? I mean, we all know that we have governments, successive governments coming up with newer rules, doing away with rules and all that. So what we have seen in the last 2 or 3 decades with the internet is the logistics have been set up. You have the routers that came in when Cisco came up with the routers, boom, it just opened up the internet big time, right? So we have the technology that's come in through, but we don't have the rules and the policy that govern that, and that's why we are talking today. And when I see from a global perspective, I see a nation, I'm going to name some names so that it's very easy. The United States, it took on the early lead, and they've been able to govern much of what's going on right now. Then you see some place like China, very focused on the future. We were talking about how their future, I mean, they're never short term, they're always long term. And they have the population to actually support that. I mean, I think about a decade ago when someone said very soon the internet is going to be, the major user of internet is going to be China, it actually sounded kind of strange for me. But now we know it is a natural thing. I mean, there's population and they get on. Likewise in India, we have the population too. The only difference is we are using it in a very scattered manner. Personally, I use it in a very, very innovative manner, which is I crowdsource heart attack symptoms to get a decision on whether it's a heart attack or not. It's very simple, nothing great about it. But I use the Internet of Things. It's a phone, it's a pad, it's whatever it is. And I think that's what's going to govern the policy itself, because we don't know what policy is going to come up. We are still young in this internet era, and I think the youngsters of today are the ones that are actually going to control what's going to happen. And I think the more we stress on innovation of usage of the internet, that actually makes money and value. We seem to be harping only on the moral side of it. I mean, security, privacy, and all of that. But the youngsters, I mean, for them, it's natural. I remember very clearly, Facebook, before Facebook, it was MySpace. A number of us, we probably don't even remember MySpace. It just moved from MySpace to Facebook. And he is governing that area, that one particular area of social enterprise. So I think at this point, India, if we can concentrate on the innovation side of it and gain momentum of value, I think we could get a lead on that. Someone's got to take a lead. I mean, the democratically arrived at policy is too far-fetched, especially with different nations having different agendas. I mean, you have Syria. I mean, they used it in a different manner. You have China that's using it in a different manner. We have America that continues to use it in a very specific manner. I mean, the 2013 revelation, it shook all of us, right? And then, like someone mentioned, if you don't have it in your constitution that you cannot spy on your own people, just have another nation come in, right? So I think the constitution is what we're trying to build up. And if we can contribute towards that by just actually governing our part of the world really strongly with value, I think we should be in a better place to talk about governance.
Okay, what I like about what you said is the use of the word value that you used in the end. So more or less, the idea of this roundtable discussion is to talk about values. And so we have a situation, typically in a international, global governance situation, we have a table where there are 5 seats, 10 seats, or 15 seats. These are the people who lead, who take the major decisions, and the people who are trusted with responsibilities. And the normal tendency as a person from India, for me, is to say that I want 2 of these seats to be taken by people from India, which could be fair, which is fair. But at the same time, there are 200 countries on planet Earth, and invariably for a certain period of time, we find that we don't have a representation, and somebody else is going to be there. And my question is there a way by which we have a framework for just and fair governance that will ensure that even if the person seated there on the table comes from a different country that we don't like, the system and the person so chosen would be fair and the system would render justice. So how do we strengthen this system to that extent? And if there is such a strong framework, if there is such a strong governance framework founded on justice, would we still be asking for something smaller, like I want somebody from my city to be seated there, or I want, I think in such a framework, the minor complaints will vanish. So the idea of this exercise is to think of ways by which we could move towards such a system. In that context, is the concept of dharma relevant? Can the concept of dharma be discussed in the framework of internet governance? From our country, this concept. From some other country, some other concept. From Egypt, some other concept. From Europe, some other concept. Some other higher concept. So those concepts can be brought together and help design or strengthen the foundation of internet governance. That's the exercise. And so one question that I would have is, about in our culture, in our history, from our history, when we had, whenever we had a governance framework, be it a governance framework where there is a king, we also had the king balanced or advised by a guru. So is that concept relevant? Is such a concept, does such a concept be applicable? Can a guru can the concept of guru be translated as a concept of an advisory body? And these are some of the questions that we could look at. Maybe Harish would have something to say. And so do you think a guru or a Rajaguru in a governance framework, even in a national framework or in a global framework, could make changes and ensure that the system remains fair and just? And if such a concept has to be modernized as an advisory body, how would you, could it be done that way?
Do you mind if I start? Okay, hi, I'm Tabitha. Yeah, I'm definitely younger than all of you present here. So yes, it kind of shivers to even start, because all are highly informed here. So you started your talk about values, and me being a sociologist, probably a student of sociology, when you spoke about values, I was just wondering what Indian values are. So if you want to bring some kind of a change in your governance, you need to know who your target audience are. And your target audience are Indians over here, because that's what your topic says, India in the open and global internet. So when you have your audience as your Indians over here, and you compare it with other people around the world, I mean, take, for example, you take the West, where I would like to start with the epics. Take the West, and you have the Bible. It's all about compliance, 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 about the 10 Commandments. And then you go on to Greek mythology, it's about breaking rules, which is exactly the opposite. It's about defiance. So you've got two extremes, and when you come to the Indians, and if you ask them, would you go ahead with compliance, or would you go ahead with defiance, he'll say, ye bhi chalega, wo bhi chalega, both is fine. I'll take both. So that's the Indian attitude, exactly. We like masala, we like noodles, we put it together and make it as masala noodles. We like chicken, we like rice, we mix it and we make chicken biryani. So Indians love a combination of everything. If you ask them if you like Maryada Purushottam and Ram, or do you like Leela Purushottam Krishna, he'll say, after all, both of them are Vishnu. So that is the Indian concept. So when you're catering to that kind of an audience where culture is really, really an integral part of it, absolutely strong bound with you, when you're catering to that kind of an audience, even to bring in the concept of internet, which is absolute transparency, is going to be ground shattering for them. Because taking things in such a faster pace, taking things in such a transparent manner is going to shake your Indian audience. in a world of 2.4 billion users of internet, and in that Indian share is so less, because what holds us back is our mere culture. So I think basically to even change the outlook of the Indians, you should be targeting on something called as transformational change. You should be bringing that into, I think through your CSR wings and all your corporates, to kind of get your young generation, not your young generation in fact, at least your older generation, which is advising the young generation on how they have to be going around. So your target audience should you should kind of cater to the needs of bringing in values as well as transparency, mixing them and making internet more accessible. And more than the internet society, you need to go to your ground root society, your grassroots level, for your objective to become a reality rather than just a dream. So that's what I felt.
Okay. Sorry, a quick remark, and whatever you said was allowed because you're a student, but this is not an Indian topic, but more a global topic, and then we will clearly avoid any reference to religion. We will not discuss religion here. We will not make comments about any culture, whether positive or negative, and so there is a certain way of talking that we'll have to observe. So whatever you said is fine, so well taken. And I also request David to help us moderate it a little. So it's not that we don't have it's meant to be an unmoderated table, but David and Raj could anytime intervene and say, okay, you're exceeding the time limit, or you're digressing and so on, and make your own observation. That would help. And
okay, I've been watching this process with great interest. We started with frustration in terms of the use of the internet in the country as of now. We had questions in terms of how it is being governed, around security, around privacy, a lot of frustration. Then it came to prescription. Then we can do it this way, this is how we should do it, this is the model of governance. Then it reached even loftier levels. We talked about gurus. Then we went to sociology. So I think we've done a kind of a full round. The topic is internet governance, and if I may, I'll just give you an idea of the size of what we're talking about. Then I think we'll be able to raise our discussion to a level where it has to be. First of all, let's look at it from a national perspective. We've been dealing with internet governance from quite a long time ago. The internet went public around 98. So we're talking about internet governance from that time. When you're talking about internet governance, it's not top-down control, it's not regulation, it is facilitation to make the internet available for everybody because of what it is. Now, for historic reasons, this is not what the Indian government did. Because the nature of the internet is unprecedented, it democratizes information, makes it available to everybody. Government is not comfortable with that. So you'll find that the availability of the internet was a very slow process in India. And even today, penetration is far lower than other countries, even repressive countries like Russia. Penetration in India is far, far, far lower. The nature of government is to control and regulate. So that all the frustration you're talking about, the internet speed, and all of that comes from the unwillingness to facilitate. There have been obstacles placed all along the way. This I know because I used to work in the internet industry and we dealt with the government since 2000. We know the obstacles that were placed in the way because they're not comfortable with it. So when we talk about internet governance, one is at a national level where they're supposed to facilitate, but there's a reluctance to do so. The other is at an international level. Now, I'm not, this is not a qualitative judgment of the Indian government, okay? I'm not saying they're good, they're bad. I'm telling you what has happened up to now. It's objective. Now you take the same scenario to the world level. You'll understand the complexity of what is going on. So you have the same Indian government sitting there. You have the government of Iran sitting there, that of China, as well as countries like the US and France, which is very progressive when it comes to the internet, all at the same table. Can you imagine the pushes and pulls? And you have business present, and you have civil society and the technical community. And you can understand the size of the problem. But even with all that, the issues being discussed are everything we've talked about today. It's about access, it's about speed, it's about getting it to everyone, it's about net neutrality, it's about languages, it's about bringing down cost. And the underlying premise is we must take the internet to everyone, which is what the internet society is all about, which is what it's trying to foster, which is why we have a forum like this. So when we are having a discussion, we should be looking at how do we try and achieve these things, and how do we work with maybe our government or in our sphere of influence to help do that.
To my sociologist friend, isn't freedom of expression a wonderful thing, eh? Something we should cherish. You did raise some interesting points, and it got me thinking a bit as well, particularly when David was saying that when we go to international fora, we have people from various countries around the table, some of which may be repressive, some not so repressive. But what struck me while Steve was speaking was something she said about values. Because a lot of those government positions come from the values, be it forced or decided by the population for those countries, be it religion-based or cultural-based or whatever it is. So I think we shouldn't forget where a lot of these views also come from. And I think one of the fundamental mistakes sometimes that does take place in international fora, and it's not just about the internet, but in various conflicts around the world and issues, is that when we don't respect each other's origins and what their beliefs are and what their values are. I think it's very important to keep a good perspective, a very general, wide perspective, and be open to other points of view. Even though you want to enforce your own, that's fine. But at least respect the other point of view. And often I've been in international meetings where that doesn't really happen. When it does happen, then you see people starting to understand, starting to dialogue. Because what you want is a dialogue, a conversation between people, or peoples, for that matter. I just made two very quick notes as well. One of the questions was, how do we, the title is India in the Open and Global Internet. And going back to the local values issues, before we can go and act in the global internet, we got to get our story here right. I mean, do we have cohesion here? Do we have similar points of view? Do we have an agreed consensus that, okay, this is what India's position should be on the global internet? I would suggest I do not think so. And the reason for that is because these conversations are not taking place. Very few of these conversations are taking place. These conversations should be localized. It's not for Delhi and the central government to decide what it is. And in fact, to give credit where it's due, the Indian government, I know, is trying to improve, particularly from the Department of IT, or DAITI as they're called now, trying to widen the conversation. They are trying to initiate programs which will get more voices into the conversation. And I think it's really up to people to then be part of it. But to my mind, India is a very diverse country. In fact, I think it's the most diverse country I know of. It's got all extremes. Be it looking at from the desert to a rainforest to snow-peaked mountains, to different people, different cultures, different languages, multiple scripts. I mean, I know of no other country which enshrines so many languages and scripts in one country. That's why we are the Union of India. We're not just India, it's the Union of India. So I think those conversations need to happen pan-India, not just in one city, not in the metros. We need to also go out to the rural areas. Roughly 70% of India's population lives in the rural areas. We are currently in a metro here. How much have we considered what's happening in the rural areas? What are their points of view? Do they even know they have a point of view? So these conversations first need to, we need to get a good grasp of what the local conversations are. And we can't just have a few people decide that they will determine for the rest of us what the position should be. So more local conversations I think will be very helpful. The other little bit my friend talked about is cardiac crowdsourcing platform that you had set up. The reason you can do that is because the internet allows a thing called permissionless innovation. If you had to go somewhere to seek permission from someone to be able to collect that data, analyze it, and then come up with maybe your 3 categories of it, you might not even be able to do that because you have to go seek permission from somewhere. When the people, how many of you use Skype? Anyone use Skype here? Yeah, a few hands going up. If you use Skype, when those guys set up Skype, and I was in their first public test program before it became public, the reason those guys were able to do what they did and revolutionize the way we can use the internet to talk to each other and these days video each other is they did not have to seek permission from anyone. And the reason for that is because the internet by design allows permissionless innovation. It's one of the fundamental features, if you like, of what the internet is and what it enables. So, we need to keep all these things in mind when we talk about governance and, regulation, no regulation. If there's too much regulation, regulation means at some stage you will need to then seek permission for something. Okay. So, we had a good conversation, Venkat and I, about air conditioning and how the regulation is the person controlling the thermostat, which decides how cool or warm the room is. And the question I put to him was, if it's too cold, you turn it slightly warmer. If it's too warm, you make it slightly cooler. But what if someone tells you, no, this is the setting it's going to be and full stop? If it's too cold, too bad. Right? So that is also an issue about regulation. How much regulation is too much? So, interesting discussion so far. I look forward to this progression. Thanks.
Discussion. Are you able to hear me? Mr. Bharat was mentioning about the Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. I represent Artiflame Foundation. We are there in 154 countries, and we use really internet for a very beautiful cause, for uplifting human spirits and human values in the world. So that way we are very grateful for this medium, and I'm really grateful for this forum to look at how we can add value and bring in values to it. And this is something which we are already working on. So, this is a very happy time for me to share my thoughts. Recently I heard Narendra Modi saying that about the World Yoga Day in the thing, and I heard around 60 plus countries have given their thing. It is a very nice thing we should do. Something like that where the global leaders should be with us for this. They are powerful for whatever reasons they are. If we have the buy-in to create a forum like this, an advisory body, I think that could be one step which all of us have to take one step, and then we need to come. If there are top 10 people in the world are in line, out of that 8 are with us, and if they are with us, at least 2 of them are with us, that could be the first step, I feel, could be. Second thing is, I feel internet is in its teenage now. When I was in 98, it was a child. Today it needs a parent, and that's what we are all sitting here for. So it's a very interesting thing to choose a parent for a teen, and the teen is already knowing many things now. And maybe this will be too late if we don't do it right now. So the time is right. Second thing, the third thing I was telling now, as an individual, from a government, from any perspective we take, it's where we have a lot of laws and regulations, but we know how it is being followed and how much it is. So what I feel is awareness is the first one pillar which we have to bring in. Like for example, when you go to a movie, it says smoking is injurious to health. It could be it just strikes a chord somewhere. So as responsible bodies like Internet Society and other bodies, we should start up with more awareness programs across the globe. This could be one thing to start up with. While we are doing this process of coming up with regulations, and we do our expertise is mind management, and in that we apply different techniques to handle our own mind. So that could be something which I thought will be useful here, where mind is like a child and as a teen, and you cannot control it, and the more you control it, it will do what it wants. Same way, we could apply the same techniques where we observe. So there could be an observing body. There we don't do anything. Maybe for 1 year, let's say, we observe and we analyze the patterns of the usage of things. I'm sure somebody is doing it for business purposes today. This data is available in the industry. Somebody is doing it and then using it commercially. Let's tie up with them and then we could see the patterns of how internet is being used for good ways and bad ways. So what we are working today is for the bad ways, how it is not to be used. So if we could do that, formalize this observing body, and if we could have a sharing mechanism across the globe, that data could be useful for our next step to come up with the regulatory thing. Because we need some base data to see. I mean, yes, these are, some of them are our experiences, some of them are feelings, but some base is required to prove also. Some paper or some white paper, something has to be published on this. Somebody should take this and then really present these things, part of these awareness programs across the globe to the international forums. This is the thing. That's it. Can I just move on? And the third thing would be in this aspect of awareness, and one is the observing thing. The third thing that I was thinking is that putting a check post, somewhere. I don't know if it is somebody will authorize this body or any body to put a check post saying that okay, you cannot do this, you cannot do this. But if these things are step by step done, I think surely, if not today, in coming few years down, in different countries, country level or whatever forum level, we would be able to come up with some level of check post where we say this kind of things are allowed, this kind of things are not allowed. These are few of my things. For this, as he was rightly saying, two things which would be required for this body is whether a responsible and accountable body, which accountability is the most important thing. This body which needs to be, who will form, how we will form. I looked for these things. These are my thoughts which I thought I should share with you. I think people have.
Hello, I'm Raagini. I'm also a sociologist, a budding sociologist, if I may say. I would like to make a very small point. We all said that governance of internet is facilitating it first. That is the initial state, meaning that you must make people aware that it exists so that they can make use of it. So the next stage, would be to actually make people use it. I feel when you bring people forward to use the internet, that is when it is actually facilitating people. So there is one issue that is, prominent in every country. That is individual opinion. When people are not allowed to express their individual opinion, okay, then as it was pointed out that many people do not get the permission to, make use of the net. I feel that one of the basic reasons is because their individual opinion is curtailed. People are not allowed or given the freedom to, express their opinion. Because today, as far as governance of internet is concerned, it has become a forum for public and individual opinion. What they cannot express freely outside, they express through words in the net. So the best way to facilitate it is we can use our educational institutions to tell people that yes, you're in an equal society, your opinion, your individual opinion is appreciated here. Because the growing knowledge about internet has reached a certain level where people know, yes, we can definitely talk to others through net. But they are hesitant to share this information because at the societal point of view, at their community point of view, their public opinion is not appreciated. So once we start encouraging the concept of individual opinion, then they would automatically feel that yes, we can reach out to others like us who are facing such problems by expressing it through net. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I heard the last 2 or 3 speakers very closely, and I thought I'll pick up some threads from it for us to take it forward. So 2 issues on governance. One is, how do you make sure that you reach out to the entire community of users and get a formula of governance that can be applied? And I believe that that's going to take some time. It is definitely a great idea. And I also want to talk about awareness and how do you actually institutionalize awareness. So my personal 2 cents on that is, we got to start from somewhere. If you got to reach out 700 million people, that is going to take quite a bit of time. So who is the policy making body here? The government is a policy making body. So is there a set of experts who can set up a governance model, which is version 1.0 for people to use? I think that is possible in a short span of time. And how do you use that version 1.0 of a governance model, which has a lot of things in it in terms of structure? Vishy was talking about that, and then Manick. Now, as a part of the structure, how do you build the awareness? Now, what is the forum by which we can transfer the awareness to the community? I think it is through education. And which is the medium that does education? It is educational institutions. So is there a way by which, we can take, look at the internet users, they are right from the age of 10, and look at, maybe between 10 and 25, which is what we want to focus, so that, they build a proper platform. So at the school level, across boards, whether it's state, central board, ICSE, at the 10th, 11th, 12th, have a governance course on governance, which is a L1, I would say, which focus on things that, that they should know and they should do and they should not do. And then do a L2 course at, the 11th and 12th level, and then a probably L3 advanced course, during their engineering or commerce or arts, whatever course they take. So this can be a common education course, a credit course that can be applied across all education institutions, right from the school level all the way to the advanced university. So that way we can implement a version 1.0 at an operational level across the society. And then as we keep building newer versions of this product, if I can, the governance model, a version 2, a version 3, by reaching out to a larger community, the new versions of this course can be launched into the curriculum. That way I believe, we'll reach out to the whole community, and that can be a launch pad for India to showcase, and that was a question you were trying to raise, in terms of how India can contribute to the overall governance. So this is something I believe that, that can be set as a good platform within India, and that can be taken to the rest of the world.
Just one additional point, based on what Harish mentioned earlier. When we are talking about this overall governance body, let me just restrict now to this national level of India, for instance. Who comprises that? Where is it situated? Who comprises it? How does one get onto it? How does one get off it? There is no clarity about that. So we need to develop a system which will create that clarity, create that awareness. That is something which is sorely lacking. I think I can safely assume 90% of us sitting out here don't know anything about that particular body, if it exists. So I think we need to address that issue also. And corollary to that is, we are talking about governance from the point of view of the internet being governed for the greater good. But we are forgetting one more factor, which is the service providers, internet service providers themselves. As I mentioned briefly, they control your access to the internet. So do we have any governance models, any levels of rules about who can be an internet service provider? What is the ownership pattern? What is their duty? What is their responsibility? Is there any published yardstick about it? Or is it just that I have the muscle, I have the money, and I'm going to bid for it, to get a license and do it? That seems to be back to the Wild West days of 18th century and 19th century America. That's what from my limited knowledge of it, I see that that's what's happening. And how would somebody like Rupert Murdoch keeps changing his citizenship depending on the convenience of whichever business enterprise he wishes to get into? And he gets in, he gets away with murder. And it becomes larger and larger and larger. I remember seeing an old movie, a silent movie, Mel Brooks movie. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's a parody of Gulf and Western. He called it Engulf and Devour. Engulf and Devour, You think this guy reminds me of that. And he's made an entry into India too. I thought India was safe from his predatory nature, but we have also fallen victim to it. So my point is, do we have a structure at all? If so, what is the structure? Who's governing it? What are the rules? I think that should be made public. We are not concerned at all about that. Then the next corollary of this is making things aware is a duty of the Indian government, or at least some of its agencies. Because why I'm saying that, it's very nice to say the internet society itself, or internet itself, should make things available and aware. But in a situation like ours, which has for a long time been a command economy, only now it's being liberalized a little bit in parts and pieces. It's not fully liberalized by any stretch of imagination. There should be some interaction between government bodies and civil society. And they should take the lead in making these issues known to people, make people aware of these issues. Spread information about governance issues, spread information about what are the various concerns expressed by people. As I think you said, I'm sorry, somebody mentioned about we have not even asked about the rural perspective. I think that was yours, Rajnesh, you mentioned that, yeah. Now, those of you who travel to the villages will notice that internet is making a presence there. It's not that it's totally absent from the villages, but it's making it a limited presence. But what is encouraging is to see the kind of presence it has. You see farmers, the educated farmer, actually using internet to gather information, including pricing for his product. It's not the old way where he used to go to the mandi and sell to the local sahukar. It's no more that. He's making use of the e-chowpals, he's making use of so many things, which is very encouraging to see. So we cannot just wipe off and forget about the rural component of this. We need to address their issues also. So coming back to my first point is there a system, is there any body which is governing this? I'm not aware of it.
I'll have a quick answer. The body has to start here. We have to start it. The multi-stakeholder process is such that we are one of the stakeholders and we are empowered to form, and it does not have to come down from government. It has to start from here. It could include business, and then it could invite government, and then that becomes the body, and we can take a step here.
Yeah, thanks, Siva. See, the answer lies here within our country. Rajnesh has very rightly said, diversity. Unity in diversity is the one. How it has come? This has come because of the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India, the preamble very clearly says, we the people of India solemnly constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and to secure all its citizens. It has been proven fact, the whole world is surprising as to with so many of diversity in tradition, sects of culture, how we are united still. The Constitution itself is an answer. In the Constitution, if you see, in the state also differ. We talk Tamil, the neighbor state talk Kerala, that is Malayalam, Karnataka speak some other language, Andhra, Telugu, etc. Still how we are united. The Constitution of India beautifully segregate into state list, central list, and concurrent list. We have to learn from this particular perspective, not in terms of India alone. It should be put to use for the international level too. State list, why they have mentioned, state has to have some sort of revenue. So these are all the thing that state can involve. Central list, for example, state list in the sense agriculture and education, etc. Central list, they say that aircraft, railways, income tax, that is a central list. What is all about the concurrent list where there is a merger? Suppose, for example, state might ask, we are collecting the income tax, why do central government enjoy that? There is a, layman question will be there. That is the reason why the Constitution of India gives the provision to this extent. Yes, state is perfectly right in stating that it is they who collect the money. So there is a percentage of interest should be there. That's what they made the concurrent list. So the state is also enjoying, central is also enjoying, and the concurrent list also enjoying. There is no ambiguity. Absolutely, there is a equal. That is the reason why, again, I would like to say that unity and diversity is not the easiest thing. The Constitution is an answer for this particular internet throughout the world also. And another small point I would, before I close, there is another thing also. There are three ways how this is being controlled: legislative, executive, and judicial. I don't have to go in explaining about this particular thing. In this way, I am sure the internet, it should be governed for that example. See, as I said, one of a citizen, what he thinks that, okay, fundamental right is there, there is a freedom for me to do anything. He has taken a very big stick and dancing on the Mount Road. The question comes, this says the fundamental right is there for me to dance with the bigger stick. Everybody wondered, everybody has said, right, he's a citizen of India, I have a fundamental right. That person was taken to a judge. Judge has said, yes, he is an Indian citizen, he has all the right, but as long as the right is not causing hurt to others. He can play with the stick. The moment the stick starts hurting others, there his liberty stops. So with this particular perspective, I think our Constitution of India is going to answer for throughout the world for the internet too. Thanks.
Internet license. You had a category called ISPs. Today, I don't think anybody in this room is being served internet by an ISP. It's only telecom companies. And the reason is that the incumbent, which is BSNL, which is a different shade of DOT, did not want ISPs. So those were the obstacles I talked about. Now, this is historical, and this is because of a practice of regulation and control. Then when the private telecom players came in, all of them, Airtel, Vodafone and all of that, they formed an oligopoly. So no ISPs. These are all the reasons why the penetration is so very low in the country today. It's historical. But now, as Rajnesh rightly pointed out, you have a different government, and you have a government that understands that the internet is vital for development. You have a Prime Minister talking about smart cities, he's talking about e-governance, he's talking about smart police, and he's talking about citizen to government interaction, all digital. So things hopefully will change. And we're seeing that in the fact that DOT is now opening up to try and be more inclusive. So rather than talk about the Constitution, I liked what you started off with when you said the answer lies in this room. At the end of the day, we're all stakeholders. And the more of us get involved in talking to and interacting with the policymakers, the more likely that the policy that comes out will facilitate rather than control.
What I wanted to say is that the outer row, they have not been speaking. So if we can give them, some of them who are interested in talking.
I'm Murli. I'm a life coach. I work in Russia and ex-Soviet republics, helping people to be more peaceful and happy at home and at workplace. So this is the first time I've come here. I'm grateful to my niece Paddu from MOP Vaishnav College, because I just came to be with her in this meeting. Now it's very interesting. It was inspiring what Mr. Shiva told about governance and India's contribution to internet society. What I feel is each and every individual has amazing values within, each and every one of us here. And fundamentally, each and every one of us is part of 5 elements which all of us know. 5 elements is, earth element is there within this body, fire element is there, water element is there, sun element, the warmth is there, space element is there. So can we, at least the ones who are here, this body, can we tune to the way nature is governing us as these 5 elements? I'll just give a short example. This happened to me a few years ago, and I was hurt with one of my best friends that he behaved in a very unexpected way, and I was unable to let go of those thoughts, that disturbance. I used to water the plants in the garden, and we found that some plants overgrew, so we cut off some shoots, some branches. After a few days, I go and observe, from the shoot which was cut, a lot more fresh leaves and fresh shoots came up. Now when I observed nature, what was happening, something happened to me, a beautiful change. I thought, my God, it got cut. And from that part where it was cut, it gives even more. You know, it grows everything. But it is not crying that, oh my God, I got cut, everything is gone. When I saw that, what's happening in nature, immediately a shift happened in me. Why should I be hurt and why should I brood over the past? Why can't I give more? This is a small example I'm giving, but if you really want this to happen in a new paradigm, can we get in touch with how nature is governing us, how these 5 elements are silently there, and without these 5 elements, we don't exist. So can we observe and tune to this nature, at least those who are present here, so that we learn how this governance is happening, so that something new might emerge. Thank you very much. I don't know if I conveyed.
No.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. I work in Anna University Media Science Department. I teach there. So, you know, the way my student used to access information few years back and how they do it now has changed. There are a lot of resources that are available in internet, you know, which they get to use today. But there is a huge hurdle. They have to search for the content online. There is no such single portal wherein they can search the content. Earlier, one initiative was taken by government, wherein they came out with a portal called Shakshat, wherein you log into that and you will get access to any educational content online. That used to be a one-point portal, but I don't think it is, you know, maintained now. If they can come out with such portal which can have database or links to other, you know, open source content, that could be one platform, and such site has to be, you know, promoted. If such kind of initiative can be taken, you know, those contents that are produced everywhere in the country can be accessed by all the students across the country. Say, for example, chemistry lectures, which are, you know, prepared either in Tamil Nadu or in Gujarat, any other part of the country, the fundamentals are the same. But what we get to do is, every state is preparing their own content. At times the examples might differ, but there is no such common, you know, platform wherein such contents are stored and accessed. So we keep repeatedly producing those content again and again. So there should be some, you know, as we said, structure wherein we can store that and give access to all the students. Thank you.
I can see internet as user who fetches the information. For example, if I need some information, I can fetch it from the internet. So first of all, we just have to think about the keywords which are used to search from the search engines like a Google. First thing, recent article which I read, it's about searching personalities from the search engine. The first thing which India's most search engine name was Shah Rukh Khan, followed by few others. And the third most is, it might be quite shocking, Sunny Leone. So we all know about what are the people who are searching search engines. The users are the main things, and what they fetch is different. We need some governance to search those things. Like if we filter some keywords, our future generation may be seeing something bad, which is not we are ready to. We are into moving into development search engines. But what the people right now searching is, which is different right from the things we are discussing right now. So we all know about those things. And India's penetration percentage is nearly 16%. Most of us know about it. But what those penetration search engines gives the results. We have to discuss about those things. We need some nod to some of the keywords which are used. Otherwise, the social impacts might be different.
I have a point to make. My name is Ravi Venkataraman. I just have a word of caution. Are we now really ready for this kind of governance as well as regulations? If you have a look at the industries in this country, we take the case of IT industry, which started in the 1990s. I think IT industry grew because the government did not know about this industry at all. Today we got a $120 billion industry. Similarly, when we started the mobile industry, initially in 1996, I remember the government said that you need to sell the mobile time at 16 rupees a minute. And there was hardly any demand. Then the industry got opened up and they said no regulations. Now I think we got a world-class mobile industry. I think we are far more innovative than all the other countries. The way in which we use mobile, like even giving a missing call and so on and so forth. And now slowly regulations are all coming up here. Similarly, the same thing we need to get this repeated in the case of internet industry also. Now all these guys who got a mobile, about 960 mobiles in this country, they all should replace these mobile with sort of intelligent mobile. Only then industry, the internet industry will really take off. Okay, then automatically all these things will happen. No, you don't have to worry. You will have something like a NASCOM coming up, and then they'll come out with all industrial regulation. I think that is the way to go.
We'll have the last 3 interventions, starting with you, but please restrict to a minute or.
A very good evening to everyone. I'm Meghna. I'm a final year sociology student. While I was listening to everyone, just 3 doubts came to my mind. First is we are considering a multi-stakeholder approach. How do we decide who the stakeholders are? Okay. And the next question, the next doubt would be how do we know that all these stakeholders are truly representative and not hijacked by people by those who have ulterior motives? Okay. And the third, there was this new term I came across. It was balkanization, that is internet fragmentation. It's feared that countries like India and Russia might move away from using the Western infrastructure because they are shunning its use. Okay, internet governance is making them start up their own portals. For example, the Election Commission banned the use of Google to motivate voters this time. And would it not lead to isolation of countries and the users in the countries, creating a drift among the users? Also, the last doubt is who and how would we decide what is right and what is wrong among the entire internet content that we come across? Like something which is right for me might not be right for you, and something which is right for you might not be right for me. So how do we filter what other person sees? So yeah, that's all.
Excellent. I'll come back to you when we sum up, and Gerald has a point to make, and again, Gerald.
Just 2 points. I don't want to elaborate, but I want us to keep in mind that internet for all this discussion shouldn't be what it is today. I think internet is becoming more powerful, and in terms of both the use and the misuse potential is exponentially increasing with drones and Internet of Things and things like that. So I think we have got to sort of keep that in mind when we come up with any governance structure. So you cannot have a control free, or to what extent should we control is the thing. The second point I want to mention is that whatever, I think we have said it several times, I think ultimately how we do things is very deeply dependent on the values, very clearly. I think I just want to take, I think there was some instance of somebody, I think the most important value which we have to emphasize is the right for individual opinion. I think, if you disagree, it doesn't matter, but you have to respect that. Because there have been cases where students or somebody has put in their opinion, and then, mobs have gone and, kind of created damage, things like that of their house, or created vandalized the place, etc. So I think these are the two things which we have to address, somehow take into account in our governance structure.
I want to ask Mr. Bharat, who started by talking about the Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, and he also touched upon some of the values, and I want to ask him if he has any more thoughts to share on values and how to build trustworthy and highly respectable governance, how to strengthen it. We are not building one, we are talking about strengthening the existing governance process.
My last point is, I don't wish to sound like some kind of guru pontificating about Indian values and all that, but I just want to, we all are Indians, so we have a shared background, whatever be our individual streams. But we need to, draw back on our inherent strengths. As somebody said, we are at unity in diversity, etc., etc. So we do have that advantage. As anybody in any business situation, we would like to play to our advantages and minimize our defects. So I think we should all concentrate on what binds us together, our shared interests, our shared backgrounds, and our shared ethos. That's what I said in the beginning, that we know we are one family. So we have a, whether we are, as somebody said, whether we speak Telugu, Tamil, that's immaterial, really immaterial. We have a common background, we all have the same values. So I think we should build on that values, and as David clarified, that there is a governance structure, whether from the IT department and ministry, etc. I think we need to alert ourselves and kind of insinuate ourselves into that situation. We shouldn't be twice removed from those power centers and let things go as they are, as per their desires and common beliefs. We need to challenge that. We need to do it in a way which is not disruptive, because I think anything disruptive sounds very sexy and nice and all, makes good news, but it's not necessarily good for longevity. So we need to be part of that process. We need to be, as I use the word again, insinuate ourselves into that situation. So I think that's the only way we can progress, and if we don't do it now, we are going to miss the boat once again, and we have a history of always missing the boat. So I think at least in IT we got into the last coach in the train, so let us not be dealing from the train now. So let's get on to it and let's get going. That's all I wish to say.
Thank you so much. And what's your name? Meghna. Okay. I think Meghna raised some of the most pertinent questions. All the 5 questions that you've raised are very, very valid, and we'll go into a detailed response by email, and we'll publish a response to this. And so some of the points that you've identified are very valid. And this discussion, roundtable discussion, first of all, I apologize. It should have been organized in a much better way. The topic should have been, the theme and the idea should have been explained well in advance, should have been circulated, and it should be explained that the topic pertains to strengthening internet governance, and some higher thoughts on generate higher thoughts on internet governance. But since that was not done, it was not so well understood. The theme and topic was not so well understood, and we actually covered quite a lot of areas, and it has been quite a diverse discussion, and most of the points that were brought up were very, very interesting. For this session, we started off thinking that we should invite people like Cho Ramaswamy and Belukudi Krishnan and people of such exalted status, but it so happened that some of those that we wanted to invite had other commitments and other issues cropped up, and it's still good to have Harish, Mr. Bharat, and so many participants from TIE, David and Raj all contribute to the discussion, and so many students join us. And I want to say that this has been a start. It's just a start. We've just started talking about something, started talking about values, started thinking of positive ways by which internet governance could be strengthened. Maybe during the discussion it was misunderstood as trying to create a new governance system, and then some of the discussion talked about regulation, check post. These are concepts totally contrary to the internet, the way internet community considers internet as how internet should be governed. It's not, internet is not to be regulated severely. It's there are not meant to be a check post, more severe check posts, and it is supposed to be free and open. It should be a flowing media with absolutely bare minimal interference where it's absolutely required. So I think we'll go ahead, follow up on this, and in the subsequent we'll have another meeting. When I met a gentleman and talked about this idea, his first impression was that it'll take 2 meetings at least, not 1 meeting, 2 meetings. And we have made a start, and we'll continue on that, and I think we will contribute something on this which will be meaningful for the internet, whole internet. And Raj, would you like to say something? And so,
my young friend at the back who was talking about the key search words. So when you took the third term that you mentioned, I thought you were talking about Sunny Deol for a while, but then I realized you were not. And to the gentleman speaking about Sunny Deol, the gentleman talking about the 5 elements, I'm of Punjabi ancestry, so I've always been told that the fire element within me is far too strong. So just a little side joke there. I thought the discussions were actually quite interesting. You know, sometimes in fora such as this, we get very focused on one particular little side issue, and then we basically flog it till it's dead. But what I appreciated here was the fairly wide range of points that were put forward. You know, as I said earlier, that the issue I see is that we need to have more of these conversations, because then only will issues rise and float to the top. Sometimes we decide, okay, this should be an issue, let's just talk about that. But once we have a more open, free-ranging discussion, you know, a few other things do float up. And I like the young Meghna, was it, sir? Yeah. The couple of points you made, the funny thing is, those 4 or 5 points that you raised are right now some of the major topics under discussion on the global arena. So I think you said you were a first-year student. Finally, my apologies, finally. So you've basically, you know, knocked the nail right on its head, because, you know, those are the issues that, you know, David, myself, Siva, others have been grappling with literally for years. You know, balkanization of the internet is a very serious issue, and if countries start restricting the internet to its own borders, that's going to have, you know, a highly detrimental effect. You know, during the opening, I said that the value of the internet is because everyone connects to it. Once you start putting borders on the internet, that's no longer possible. You know, it really will impact innovation. It will impact creativity, etc., etc. And then, of course, you talked about individual opinions, which something is I cherish quite a bit. And that's when you spoke about what you did, I said, isn't freedom of expression a wonderful thing? You know, everyone should have the right to express their opinions within reason, as Venkat, of course, said. You know, as long as the stick doesn't start hitting someone, you can swing it all you want, right? So I really appreciate the discussions. I'm not going to summarize the session. I think Shiva is going to do that anyway later on. But I do invite you to please stay involved in the conversation. We have, you know, since we are the Internet Society, we have various fora online which you can join. Connect to each other online, obviously, through Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is. And you know, keep the conversation going, because I think that's where the value lies for us going forward. Thank you.
That was a very interesting discussion. And as Raj said, we covered a very wide range of issues. And these are real issues. And I'm particularly happy that the sociology students had so much insight. Seriously, the points that were raised, and the point that you made about how nations look at things, you know, defiance, compliance and all of that, it's very real. And we see that at the international fora. These are real issues. And about voicing opinions. Too often opinions are being suppressed. And the internet does allow you a chance to express your opinion, and we need more of it. Now the thing is, the passion with which this discussion took place shouldn't remain only here. Each individual needs to engage and make your voice heard, because the internet belongs to you. And you shouldn't be letting the government or anybody or any corporation throttle you or tell you what to do or restrict you in any way. That's the whole point of this discussion. Governance does not mean control. Governance does not mean regulation. Governance does not mean licensing. It means facilitating so that you and I can use it. And you should not let go of this truth. Engage through the Internet Society, engage with all kinds of fora, make your voice heard. That's what this is about. Because at the end of the day, like the Internet Society says, the Internet is for everyone. Okay? Which also means that the point that you made, key search words should be blocked and stuff like that. No, my friend. Individuals have to take the responsibility for what they look for. You don't control what people do. You give them the freedom. The internet is like life. You sometimes do something wrong, right? So do I. But we have to be given that freedom. You can't control people's minds or their ability to do things. It's a free and open internet, as Siva has said time and again. Free and open means we need to use it with responsibility and with values, as Raj brought up again and again, the values that we stand for. But I'd like to conclude by saying, be engaged, make your voice heard, and make sure that you make your position as a stakeholder. Don't let others decide who the stakeholders are. You are a stakeholder. Make your voice heard.